my sisters, especially my Black sisters. Before we begin this month, I need to say something out loud. Not because I want sympathy, not because I want to rehash the drama, but because I have carried this pain quietly for most of my life. This is bigger than me, but this is intimately personal. I have lived what happens when sisterhood fails, and I am choosing to build sisterhood anyway. I have known what it feels like to not be accepted by my sisters since childhood, to be the observant one, the deep one, the intense one, the different one, the one that speaks her mind. I've been labeled too much, too strong, too aware, too ahead, too accountable, too outspoken, too confident. So I learned to build. I have spent most of my life building friendships, building tables, building spaces, building rooms I hoped my sisters would sit in with me. Yet, if I'm honest, I never quite fit into the spaces I was invited into, or even the ones I built. I felt admired, I felt needed, I felt leaned on, but I rarely felt chosen. I did not feel embraced in love, and that is a different kind of loneliness. There is a specific ache that comes from being the strong one, the insightful one, the resourceful one, the connector, the woman people call when their dysfunctional lives need strength and strategy, but not the woman they call when they desire to indulge in the leisures of life's softness and serenity. Over time, I learned how to survive. I adapted. I learned early in childhood how to hold space, how to regulate rooms, how to read patterns, how to see dynamics, how to anticipate tension before it arrives. I learned how to build, how to achieve success, how to become impressive, how to make myself undeniable. Because if you cannot belong, you must outperform. And when I became successful, when my son's successes became visible, when doors opened, when quality men noticed me, invested, and poured into me, something strange happened. Something shifted. Women flooded in, seeking my wisdom, offering their care, offering admiration, positioning themselves close. Not all, but more than enough. Enough for me to recognize the pattern for sure. But what I never learned was how to be held. And when my firstborn son, Bryce, died, the grief of losing him didn't just break my heart. It exposed everything and everyone, especially the women. It exposed who was safe, who was silent, who was waiting and watching, who was whispering, who was destroying. It exposed the women who judged, the women who demonized. It exposed the women who decided that because my child chose to exit this world, I must be the sole failure as his mother, a damaged woman, a spiritual liability, a social danger to my entire family and the community. There were lies. There were camps and group chats. There were narratives created to destroy me while I was burying my son and trying to heal through grief. And the isolation that followed has been louder than the funeral, even 7 years later. Because when tragedy touches you, when tragedy touches your child, some women decide you are contaminated, you are a disgrace. You deserve to be excommunicated from existence. They decide you are not a good woman, not a good mother, not someone to associate with, much less build with. I have sat with that for 7 years. I have sat with the loneliness of being strong through devastation, of regulating my nervous system while being publicly dissected, of watching other women choose the judgment of cowardice or cruelty over the loving acceptance of care and compassion. When Bryce died, that loneliness didn't just hurt, it echoed. Because grief reveals who your village really is, who is truly part of your sisterhood. And I further realized something that broke my heart quietly. Before losing Bryce, I was being used. Used for access, used for proximity, used for visibility, used for connection, used for influence, used for guidance. I was celebrated publicly, but competed with privately. That is a different kind of betrayal. I have lived with what happens when sisterhood fails, and here is what I now know. We talk about sisterhood, but many of us are still competing for safety inside the patriarchy. We bond over struggle and survival, but we fracture over attention and visibility, over proximity to handsome and successful men, over money, over status, over who is being chosen. That is not sisterhood. That is fear. That is a scarcity mindset. And when sisterhood fails, the patriarchy wins. Our children lose. The communities fracture and grief spreads like wildfire with each new face on a t-shirt, because it takes a village. Not a highlight reel, not a group chat, not a women's empowerment brunch. A village. A regulated, honest and transparent, emotionally intelligent and mature village. As we enter into Women's History Month, I want you to understand this is not about blaming women. It's about examining what we inherited generationally. We inherited brilliance, resilience, leadership, intuition, spiritual depth, but we also inherited comparison, emotional suppression, respectability politics, and competition fueled by the desperate need for male validation. And it shows. It shows in how we celebrate each other publicly, but withhold intimacy privately. It shows in how we gather together under the guise of empowerment, but do not feel fully accepted and safe in those spaces. It shows in how many Black women are building empires alone. I do not want to build alone anymore. And I refuse to let the next generation of young girls and ladies believe isolation is strength. If Black women are architects, then what are we building? Are we primarily focused on building careers and credit, networks and net worth, brands, businesses, and our bank accounts? Or are we building nervous systems that feel safe to embrace and love one another? Families that raise healthy children, and communities unified in care and love. Because our daughters are watching, our sons are watching, and our grief is teaching us what betrayal and collapse cost us. Me personally, I do not perform empowerment. I embody it through accountability, and I'm asking my sisters to do the same. Not by pretending we've always done sisterhood well, but by finally telling the truth about where it has hurt us. By finally holding ourselves accountable for healing. I am not here to compete with you. I'm not here to dominate you. I am not here to be the strong friend forever either. I'm here to build. Build something regulated, something honest, something mature, something transparent, something that doesn't crumble the second a man enters the room. I am not building sisterhood because I am naive. I am building it because I have lived what happens without it. I am building it because I have faith, and faith without work is dead. This is bigger than me. This is for my sons, for their future wives, for their daughters, for the sons who will marry our daughters, for the minds and hearts of the next generation. If Black women are architects, then we must build safe spaces of love and acceptance, environments where peace is the goal, where grief is not weaponized, where failure is not judged, where success is not competed with, where degrees, careers, wifehood, and motherhood are not our only identities, where proximity to men is not social currency, where love is not transactional, where we are not bonding through trauma and separating through growth. This month is sacred to me because I have lived what happens when community fractures, because I was forced to bury what my silence cost me. I refuse to let my remaining sons inherit a world where women around them are fractured, competing, and suspicious. I refuse to let my daughters in love inherit sisterhood where women tear each other down for attention and validation. It is costing us gravely. It is costing us our families, our children, our communities, our legacies, our sovereignty. This month is not about surface level women empowerment. It is about accountability. Not shaming women, but asking the truly hard questions. Can we celebrate each other without competing? Can we witness failure, loss, and grief without judging and demonizing? Can we see another woman rise without calculating what we lose or how to gain from her? Can we protect one another even when men are watching and pouring out attention? I am not perfect. I have been angry, guarded, skeptical, hyper independent because my life's experiences taught me to protect myself. But I am choosing something different now. Not softness without boundaries, not blind trust, not forced unity, but intentional architecture. Sisterhood that is regulated, emotionally mature, spiritually grounded, and psychologically aware. Because I have buried a son. I have gained daughters in love. Because I continue to survive public scrutiny. Because I continue to endure isolation. And I am still here. Still believing in my sisters. Still believing that Black women can be architects of something healthier than what we inherited. Still believing that Black women can be architects of something healthier that our children will inherit. So to my sisters, if you have ever felt unseen, if you have ever built spaces and still felt excluded, if you have ever felt used for your intuition and wisdom but denied intimacy and care, if you have ever wondered why sisterhood feels harder than it should, stay. We're not doing surface level women's empowerment. We are building architecture. And this time, I look forward to building it together because I have lived what happens when sisterhood fails. And I am choosing to build it anyway.